joining New Hampshire Renews Coalition for our first utility rate hike town hall. It is a pleasure to have you join us this evening, and we're really excited to be able to share some of the work that we've been doing and having an opportunity to get together to discuss something that is really impacting all of us here in New Hampshire. So quickly, before we really get into things, I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Grace Kindeke. I'm the program coordinator with the American Friends Service Committee, New Hampshire program, and a proud member of New Hampshire Renews. So for folks who don't know what or who New Hampshire Renews is a forward-thinking, multiracial, regional coalition that expands across the 6 New England states. The coalition, which now includes more than 150 organizations across New England, has brought together environmental justice advocates, has brought together frontline communities, indigenous tribes, labor unions, racial justice organizations, as well as youth groups. And here in New Hampshire, we are a coalition of 11 organizations that have been meeting since early 2020 to develop a legislative agenda and advocacy campaign for 2021 that is focused on implementing and developing a Green New Deal with policy changes that work for all of our communities. And so our state coalition members include Rights and Democracy, 350 New Hampshire, American Friends Service Committee, Slingshot, Conservation Law Foundation, the Granite State Organizing Project, Merrimack River Watershed Council, New Hampshire Youth Movement, the Cowsack Band of the Pennacook and Abenaki People, Rise Upper Valley, and the Unitarian Universalist Action. And so I want to just take a quick moment if folks who are part of the coalition just quickly put their hands up so folks know who you are. Awesome. And welcoming all of you all to here tonight. And so why are we here tonight? We're here tonight because of a pretty singular question that I'm sure many of us have not noticed yet, have noticed recently in our utility bills. And that question is, has your utility bill suddenly increased? I think most of us can answer yes, right? It has. And it increased significantly. So recently, Eversource and Liberty Utilities were approved for huge price increases in New Hampshire starting in August of this year. So this was largely related to the high price of fracked methane gas, but it's also because of a policy that does not protect our people from extreme rate hikes because of corporate interests and a corporate desire for increased profits. And so what we also see is that there is already an over-reliance on fracked gas in the Northeast. And over and over again, we've seen increased barriers to being able to build more solar and wind and other alternative energies. So we wanted to hold this event in order to bring our community together, to come together online, in person, in this new hybrid world that we all embody, in order to discuss how this happened, to understand that a little bit more, to know what resources exist for folks who need support in order to afford this rate increase, and also to get to come together to brainstorm and strategize about what we can do next to fight these cost increases. So tonight we are joined by an incredible panel of experts and community leaders who are doing the work to ensure that people have exactly that, the right information to be able to make the most informed decisions. But first, we're going to start the night off with some stories from directly impacted community members who've shared what these rate hikes have meant for them, how it has expressed itself in their own lives. We will then introduce the panel who will share a little bit about themselves and then share what they think is important for all of us to know based on the work that they do. And the analogy I like to use is like what part of the elephant that they touch, because we all touch a different part of the elephant. I like elephants. And we all can, all the pieces of that, we all come together and we can figure out the best solutions for ourselves. And so once our panelists have a moment to share what they'd like to share with us, then we're going to break out into small groups, both here and in Zoom world. So our lovely moderators and facilitators in Zoom will be breaking folks up into small breakout groups. And we'll have a chance to discuss and reflect on both on what we've heard and the stories, as well as our own stories, how this has impacted you in your life, as well as then any questions that may have come up for you that you would like to ask our panelists. And so we'll take a few moments to do that. And then we'll come back together as a large group and we'll share those questions, we'll share some of those reflections. I'll invite members of the audience to come up and share what their table has come up with. Anyone who has specific questions for the panelists is welcome to do that. And then we will also then invite our Zoom participants as well. If any questions come up, we'll be sure to be forwarding those questions to our panelists as well. And then once that is done, we will close out with some actions that people can take, some information that we want to make sure that you leave tonight with. And then we will close and we will talk about next steps and how we continue this work with us. So very quickly, just some quick housekeeping. There for folks, just make sure if you have any needs for those who are here in person, we have supplies at each table as well as an information table right outside the door. If you haven't had a chance to pick up some of the flyers and information, they are located there. Bathrooms are located right outside, and I believe to the left. Anyone correct me if I'm wrong? Yes. To the right, excuse me. Right outside the door to the right if you need it. And facilitators are in the room if you have any questions or get stuck or confused on anything, as well as in our Zoom room as well. So please feel free to put your questions or concerns in the chat, and our Zoom moderators will be there for you. All right, so if there are no questions, everyone is ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Anne, who will be sharing some of the stories from our community members.
My name is Anne Rossi, and I have a story that is about small business. This is a business in downtown Manchester, and the owners are Paul Knowles and his wife Annie Knowles. And they have a restaurant, and I went into that, talked to them because I know them, my daughter-in-law and son know them, and I just said, we were doing a town hall, we'd like to invite you as a small business if this is impacting you. He said he couldn't be here because this is their busiest time, dinner hour. But he said, please tell them that this is having a big impact on a small business. He has two small businesses. The restaurant is brand new, and they are just in business about 2 years right now, and they're just about making it. It takes a while to get a restaurant going, but the electricity bill has doubled, he said. And it's having a big impact on this business that they're running. And he has another business which has been in business for quite a few years, but he said the same thing has happened there. It's having an impact because his bill has doubled. I said to him, have you looked at other companies besides Eversource and Unitil? Because I have a different company, and my bill has not gone up. So we had a conversation about that. But it's not just impacting individuals, it's impacting small businesses too. So we have some individual stories, I understand?
Yes. I think we had someone on Zoom as well.
Thank you so much, Anne. And so our next storyteller is going to be on Zoom. I invite Viola, who will share a story of a community member as well.
Hi, Grace, and hi everyone on Zoom and in person. I have one of our leaders who's actually trying to join Zoom. She's going to share her story. So Grace, is it okay if we get back to you once she joins? She's having trouble right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for letting us know.
Thank you.
We do also have Sebastian. Has Sebastian there on Zoom to share his story?
No, we had a family emergency.
Okay. All right. Family emergency. We are rolling with it in real time. All right. Well, thank you all. So we will then toss the ball to Jennifer, who will share stories, and then we'll come back to Viola.
Hi everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. So I have here a story from Mark Lennon in New London, New Hampshire, who says, I am fortunate to have been able to disengage from Eversource. I live in an old house and own an old barn, both face south. Both roofs are sheathed with solar panels. Eversource sends me a check once a year for the electricity they produce above and beyond what I use. I guess that makes me a beneficiary of any rate hike. I'm producing enough power now to trade in my propane hot water and space heater for electric on demand and be done with those bills as well. I'm not a wealthy person, but it all seems so straightforward. It's an investment in my long-term financial well-being and in a drop in parentheses, in a drop in the ocean sort of way, in the well-being of the planet. Who in their right mind would act otherwise? Then I have another story, and this is from Pete Vanderland in Tamworth. And he says, my shop bill last month was over $150. These days, it's a fridge, a 6-gallon hot water heater never used, a very small squirrel cage blower, around 2 amps on the furnace, and on hot days, I ran an exhaust fan 4.5 amps. That's it. The shop is turned off. That's the commercial account. The house is over $300. That's AC in one room of the house during the day, turned off at night. That's the residential increase you saw kick in August. The state has assisted in this by claiming any building unattached to the main residence is to have a commercial meter. That allows for a myriad of add-ons, the worst being the 5,000 watts uninterrupted for 1/2 hour charge, which come with a $9.75 penalty every time you use it. Since I run cooling ovens for glass, turning one on nicks me for that unless I do what the Eversource rep told me to do. Turn it off at 20 minutes and restart it. I can't really run my little business at this point, so I'm lucky I have other income sources. Blame the PUC. And Sales has a story as well from somebody.
Hey there, Sales with New Hampshire Youth Movement. This story is from John McNally, Monroe, New Hampshire. John says, Liberty Utilities of Londonderry, New Hampshire, without advance notice, virtually doubled its rate as of August 1st, 2022, from about 11 cents a kilowatt hour to 22 cents a kilowatt hour, saying that this new rate would stay in effect until January 31st, 2023. Liberty claims it's not applying any markup to this outrageous rate, but rather it's only passing through what it's paying for electricity from an unidentified third party. He also received a heating oil delivery of 189 gallons on September 23rd, and the price was $4.47 a gallon. He called the company, and now it's $5.83, an increase of 30% in only 3 weeks. In the same 3-week period, crude oil prices were more or less the same. These price increases cannot be attributed to anything but corporate greed. They certainly do not reflect recent inflationary pressures, such as they are. I hope something can be done to roll back this greed. Thank you for your efforts and your concern, John McNally. Are the folks on Zoom ready to share? I'll pass it back to Grace, maybe.
Thank you so much, Sales and Jennifer and Ann, for that. And so we're just going to double check with our compatriots on Zoom. Viola, do we have our community member ready to go?
Grace, so I'm trying to connect our speaker for the night on phone because she's really wanting to share her story, but technical issues are coming up for her. So as you can hear me, just bear with me for a second, and if I'm able to get her on the voice audio, she'll be able to share her story like in a few seconds. Thank you for being patient with me.
No, thank you. I know we all have to adapt to, again, the Zoom world. So thank you all for sharing that, and I'm sure there are more stories that we'll hear throughout the night. And I'll quickly share my own story, which is that I have Liberty Utilities, and although my husband and I can afford the rate increase, the rate increase absolutely doubled for us as well. We went from maybe $150 a month to our next bill was $300. about $350, and it was a deep, deep, deep surprise. So it's definitely affecting all of us in different ways. And so while we wait for our community member to join us, and maybe we'll go ahead and pivot and share the story a little bit later in the evening, I'd like to go ahead and pivot to our panel. Because I think one of the things that we thought would be so important is ensuring that, we have the voices of experts in our community who are paying attention to the PUC, who are working with communities to ensure that folks have the information and the means the assistance that they need to be able to meet these rate increases, as well as folks who are working to advocate and to share different alternative ways that we can bring energy to our communities. And so I think one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that the panelists have a chance to share who they are and reflect a little bit to us on what piece of the elephant that they touch and what they think is important for us. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Dawn Creese, our consumer advocate.
Hello. Is my microphone on? Can everybody hear me? Sounds like. Well, thank you, Grace, and thanks to all of you for inviting me. I am the state's consumer advocate, and I am clearly at the back end of the elephant. Which means my job is representing the interests of residential utility customers at the Public Utilities Commission and anywhere else where those interests come up. So mostly I'm at the PUC, so I have lived at ground zero of the rate increases that everybody is talking about. And in that regard, I just want to say I'm really grateful to hear the stories of individual people struggling to deal with what's happened. You would be shocked, perhaps, to know that I don't hear enough of those stories. I get lost in my own world with the Walker Building in Concord, where we're just dealing with these things in a very technical and ethereal way. It really helps to know viscerally how this actually helps people, or how this actually has been affecting people. So I'm really grateful for that. So I can tell you, if you want, exactly how we got to where we are. I don't have any magic bullets to offer about how we get out of where we are, but I do have a few suggestions. I want to remind everybody, and it has already been suggested to you a few times, that you are not obliged to take those outrageously high default energy service rates. But if you do decide to turn your back on your utility and migrate into the world of competitive energy suppliers, there are some pitfalls to be aware of, and I can certainly talk about those. And I put together a sample disclosure statement from one of the competitive energy suppliers that I picked, and I can tell you what's good and bad about making a choice like that. And I can tell you that we're in there fighting every day to keep things as reasonable and affordable as possible. Is that good enough, Grace? Is there anything else you want me to talk about right now?
I think that's wonderful. Can you share, maybe just very quickly share a little bit about, what is the PUC? What is this body of people that decides these rate increases?
So electric companies and gas companies and water companies are monopolies, right? It doesn't make sense to have them competing with each other. And so when you have a monopoly, you need somebody to make sure that they don't charge monopoly prices. So here in New Hampshire, we have a Public Utilities Commission. It has 3 members. The commissioners are each appointed by the governor, confirmed by the Executive Council, and their main job is to make sure that the rates are just and reasonable and not too outrageously high, but they also can't go too low, because if you go really low, then you have what are called confiscatory rates, meaning, in effect, the government has taken the property of the utilities without just compensation. So, unfortunately, that is really a big part of what's driving these outrageous rate increases, because you can't tell the utilities that they have to eat these costs. You could tell them that, but if you did tell them that, they would march right down to federal court, they'd file a lawsuit, and they would win.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Don. And so our next panelist is Leah Richards, who's the Director of Energy Assistance at the Community Action Program of Belknap, Merrimack Counties.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Richards, and I am here as a resource. I work in electric assistance and fuel assistance for Belknap and Merrimack County. I will be happy to talk about some support programs, and I can tell you these stories and many, many other stories that I'm hearing on the daily about the challenge of affording everything, but certainly electric and utility heat and heat in general. And so I am here to share with you, I left some flyers, but I'm happy to answer any questions about both the programs that run every year to assist with the cost of electric and the cost of heating. These are programs that are income eligible programs, and these are programs that work whether it's Liberty or Eversource or a third-party provider that you're using to supply your electric. And so whoever you are paying your electric to and your heat to, if your income for the household falls under the numbers on these sheets, you are eligible for some support. We also this year have a state program that has been announced for about a month now that is specifically to assist with heat and electric costs, and this is for a low median income household. And when I say household, I don't mean house, any dwelling. You can live in an apartment, you can live anywhere you are paying for heat or electric. If you are income eligible, we would love to help you because I know these costs are high. We heard about these, increases coming, and I have been saying to my wife for so very long, these increases are going to be 100% or more, and still when we received our first increased bill, it was shocking. And I know from talking to so many seniors on fixed incomes, so many households trying to stretch with food costs and electric costs, I know how hard this is for so many people. And we are seeing incredible numbers of applications coming in because there is a real fear, there's a real panic about how to afford this. So I'm here as whatever part of the elephant is the resource. I tried to think of a good analogy, but I got nothing. And here because I want to be able to help. Even these assistance programs aren't guaranteed to cover the costs, but they're meant to assist in any way that they can. So happy to answer any questions, tell you a little bit more about those programs. But first, I'm going to pass it along in a quiet moment without too many children over here to the next panel. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, Leah. And so our third but never final panelist is Dan Weeks, who is the employee owner and VP of Business Development at Revision Energy.
Thank you so much, Grace, and great to be with you, Leah and Don. Thank you all for putting up with a little bit of commotion here. Folks, I'm probably not the only one who deal with the craziness of everyday life, and my wife is teaching late today, so it was all or nothing. And I'm glad you could all be here. As Grace said, my name is Dan Weeks. I am one of almost 400 employee owners, and thrilled that my colleague and co-worker Chris, who works on designing a lot of residential clean energy systems, is here with us as well. And I'm honored to be on the journey of, maybe to stick with the elephant analogy, as I joined here by the three little big reasons why I do the work I do. I think I could say I'm perched on the back of the elephant with a pretty good view. One of our favorite family stories my wife and I tell is of our first elephant ride before they arrived. They like the view that we got from up there. And that's to say that I am fortunate to be working on policy level and with our company. So for those who don't know, Revision Energy is an employee-owned solar company and a certified B corporation. B stands for benefit, and that means that as a company we have committed ourselves to operating not for profit first and foremost, but for people and planet first. It's a journey that we feel blessed to be on, trying to help families as well as businesses, nonprofits, towns, cities, colleges, universities transition away from fossil fuels and toward cheaper, cleaner energy sources from the sun, and then using that electricity for transportation, for heating and cooling, etc. And in that work, we are fortunate to be looking toward the horizon, maybe as the sun is setting, and it's nice to be here at the McAuliffe Shepard Discovery Center, all about space and our solar system, and I'd like to remind us that the biggest power plant of them all, the biggest nuclear reactor, is up there in the sky about 93 million miles away, and it provides all of the energy that we need, just about all. And from a solar standpoint, the particular industry I find myself in, we get enough sunlight hitting the surface of the earth in 1 hour to, if we harnessed it all, power human needs for a year, and to do so freely. Not that there isn't an upfront cost, we need to install the technology, but unlike the other industries that we have relied on since the Industrial Revolution, coal and oil and fracked gas, etc., the fuel source, so to speak, is free. And it's for that reason that we get to, in the work that I do with Chris and others, get to look out to a future that is indeed brighter. From a cost standpoint, it's been now 5 years since solar officially became the cheapest form of energy on Earth. Again, because once you've installed it, and even when you factor in the cost to install, you can continue generating power for decades at almost zero cost. Solar is followed closely behind by wind, which is the next cheapest form of power we have on Earth. And so the reason we are undergoing a rapid transition in this country, I would add not rapidly enough from a climate standpoint, but the reason this transition is underway is because of economics and because of the fundamentally deflationary dynamic of renewables, where again that source of energy is free and abundant. So happy to talk more about that view and more practically. I suppose my quick energy story is that we are very blessed, of course, to live in a solar-powered home and to fuel up our cars, our electric vehicles with power from the sun, and heat and cool as well with heat pumps. However, not all homes are ideal. Ours is not. We happen to have an east-west facing roof and a fair bit of shade, so we don't get all of our power from the sun, especially since the family grew and we needed a bigger electric car. So that's to say, like a lot of you, we're paying electric bills too, and that points us to solutions because our roof is only what it is, and it's shaded the way it's shaded, and it's oriented the way it is. That excites us about the future in New Hampshire of community power, which will take different forms, but we're all familiar with CSAs, community-supported agriculture, and we are on the cusp of seeing finally in New Hampshire CSFs, community solar farms, where families can own a share, their 20, 30, 40 panels that they need to power all of their needs in a centralized solar farm and be able to get the credits from that. So even a family like ours that has solar on the roof but doesn't get enough power as we move toward electric vehicles and electric heating and cooling can also participate in that. So happy to talk more about those longer term opportunities. And maybe because I know there are a lot of activists in the room, and I have huge appreciation for New Hampshire Renews and the youth movement and the other organizations like 350 that are doing this work and gathering us tonight. Happy to talk a little bit about policy, because it isn't an accident that New Hampshire is at the very bottom of the heap in New England and the Northeast when it comes to deployment of these cheaper and, of course, cleaner renewables. And from a policy standpoint, there is a lot of work to do, which will begin, of course, with the election on November 8th.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Can we just have a quick round of applause for our panelists? So thank you all for sharing a little bit about yourselves. And I know probably, I was jotting down some questions, so I'm sure other folks are jotting down questions. But I did get a message that our community member has joined us. And so I would like to just take a moment before we break out into our small groups to invite Benny to the stage, the virtual stage, and share a little bit about how the rate increases have affected you and your family.
Yes, my name is Benny Rivera. I've been in New Hampshire since 1990. And right now I'm a pastor of Iglesia IBM Adulam. And my electrical bill is going up like a triple, like I was paying last year. And I'm a retired person, and I'm living from my Social Security. And I tried to get a solution how to lower my electrical and gas bill, but unfortunately, I tried the solar panel, and after I have almost everything ready to get my solar panel, the company Ever Sources, the one I have for years since I've been in this country, they deny the company Sunroom put my panel because, I pay my bill sometime 2 months behind because I didn't have all the money to pay it once, and I was making payment plan. And, they didn't help, like, for me get the, lower my bills. They say no, and I couldn't get it, my solar panel. I don't know if any other program I could get it because, if they increase, this keep increasing, the electrical and the oil bill keep increasing, how we going to pay, that amount of money if we try other sources and the system don't help us? That is, my story.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Benny. And it's true. I mean, this is happening right all across the state, whether you're a renter or homeowner, whether you live in the cities, in Nashua or Manchester, or in the rural areas. This really is affecting all of us. And I know when I got that bill, and we had just put our AC away, so I did not even understand how 1 month when we were using AC, it was $150, and then the next month when there was no AC, it had doubled in price. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing tonight. And so with that being said, I know there's a lot of information, a lot of stories, a lot of our own, how is this affecting me? We are going to break out into our small groups at this moment, just to give ourselves a little bit of time to reflect kind of back at each other, start to be in conversation with one another about what we've heard, any questions that are coming up, anything that's coming up in your group. And so I know on Zoom, folks will be using a whiteboard feature that our Zoom facilitators will share more information about in the chat. So please do check that, and they'll walk you through how to add your thoughts to that group whiteboard. And then in here, you'll see on each of your tables, you've got Post-its, you've got some pens, you've got some big newsprint paper as well. So we want you all to just take a few minutes. We're going to take about 10 minutes to just start to brainstorm, reflect back, kind of what you've heard. What does this mean for you? How is this showing up for you? How is it showing up for other people in your family, in your community that you know? What questions do you have for our panelists? I mean, like I said, I've been jotting down my questions. I got a ton, so please beat me to it, because there's so much critical information, and the best ways that we can really advocate for ourselves to make these changes, to understand what's going on, is definitely in tapping into the knowledge and the work and the people, the folks here in our community who can help us get that information. So please take a few minutes. We're gonna just like hang out, write, chat, be in conversation, and then we'll come back. I will ping you all when we've got a minute left, and then we'll come back and start to share both what we shared within our groups, any reflections, and then any questions as well for our panelists. So go ahead and feel free to get started. And if you are sitting by yourself or one of a few and you would like to join us on the table, please do. We just might want to make sure everyone has a group to join and that no one is by themselves. So please go ahead and get started.
Yeah, like, is it? Yeah.
folks who are watching us on Facebook right now, thank you so much for tuning in. So far we've heard some community stories and we've heard from our panelists tonight. I'm going to end this live for now as people are in discussion with each other about how these utility rate hikes are impacting them, and we will go live again in approximately 10 minutes to answer some questions that everyone has come up with for our panelists. So if you're online and you have a question, feel free to comment on this post and I will make sure your question gets asked. Thanks so much.